Thank you, councillors. Welcome to our May meeting of the Warren Shire Council, our ordinary meeting. I declare the meeting open. And before we start, I would just like to extend a formal welcome to Sylvester, our new Divisional Manager of Engineering Services. Welcome to Warren. We hope you have a long and rewarding stay with us, and it's great to have you on board. And you come highly recommended, so we're pleased to see that you're here and becoming part of our community. And I think you've met all the councillors, so we've already taken that opportunity, but just wanted to formalise a welcome to Sylvester, and nice to have you on board.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for having me.
Call now for apologies and applications for leave of absence for this council meeting. We have an apology from Councillor Taylor. Someone has an apology. Councillor Jackson, Councillor Kinsey. With that, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to the minutes of the April meeting, held Thursday the 28th of April. Someone happy to move those minutes, please? Councillor Jackson, Councillor Walker. Councillor Jackson? Councillor, any comments, questions regarding the April meeting minutes? In case we put that, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Disclosures of interest. Councillors, you're reminded of the pro forma that sits in front of you with regard to the pecuniary or non-pecuniary disclosures of interest. Councillor Derrick, I note that you made a non-pecuniary interest in regard to the Division Manager Financial infrastructure report. Any further disclosures of interest that may be made before we continue? It's just we just declare that one. We no need to remove or a seconder. There are no mayoral minutes. Moving on to item 6 of our agenda, and that is the reports of the committees. The first of those meeting, the Traffic Committee, held on Thursday the 5th of May. Noting that Councillor Taylor is the chair of that committee. But Councillor Derrick, are you happy to move those minutes? Thank you, Councillor Drews. Councillor Derrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I haven't been briefed on this meeting. I am happy to move the recommendations. Any questions can hopefully be answered by Raymond. So, yeah, I don't know much more than what's here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Derrick. To the Town Service Manager, just a question regarding 4.2, the traffic flow changes, particularly in relation to Stafford Street and heavy vehicles. Do you understand that what I think we have discussed this before in management before, but just closing Stafford Street potentially to large vehicles.
Yes, the idea is to try and push all of the heavy vehicles onto the industrial bypass rather than bringing them through town. Obviously, there will be some. I'm sorry, tongue tied this morning. There'll be some change, that will have to go through Stafford Street to get to local businesses and so forth.
So are we talking all heavy vehicles, i.e. semi-trailers, VWs, road trains?
Semi-trailers will still come through town.
Yep.
Will still be allowed to come through town. My understanding is that Transport for New South Wales aren't very comfortable or forthcoming in getting rid of heavy vehicle accesses. So the highway is still the access. But as I said, we're trying to convince them to declare the industrial access road as the heavy vehicle bypass to try and limit the amount of heavy traffic that comes through the town.
So to me, does that mean if that's agreed to, the Traffic New South Wales then puts it out there through their channels to truck drivers? Is that how it works? How do they know?
Correct. The Transport for New South Wales will update their website that notifies trucks with what are the designated travel routes.
Don't we already have a road train limit at the Shire Depot as Stafford
Road trains, yes. Not, no,
Road trains,
yes. All I'm mindful of two things is that, yes, road train access into the town centre, but I'm just mindful of our operators, the ones in Zora Street and Bank Street, accessing being able to access, as is in my view their right to their own depots. So I'm just a bit concerned with it is Stafford Street between Dubbo Street and the north side of Zora Street. So what we're saying there potentially is that centres will have access, but anything beyond that won't have access. Is that?
that's my understanding.
Yeah, because currently, or what it used to be, road trains, like Councillor Whiteley said, can't come past what used to be the Shell Depot, but turn down into the Silo Road. And Zora Street north this way, Stafford Street north of Zora Street was a no road train access, so you get into Dwyer's, Blue Donnelly's, off the highway, down Zora Street, in around Cook and Bank Street. But yeah, basically from Essential Energy to the old Shell Depot was a non-road train route there.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just quickly, if you ban road trains through the town, and you want them by the bypass, you need to be a pretty good driver to turn right from Wombiena Road or Milson Street. It's very difficult.
I was going to do it the other day, actually.
Thank you. Let's formalise this so that any questions, comments come through the mayor, please, and no other further comments from side. Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding the traffic committee? Councillor Ward.
Yeah, I was just interested in, well, it's item 6.1 and it's a pity that Councillor Taz on here. Just wondering about a bus stop sign and double line request on Wombiana Road and items like that. If that's possible for explanation.
Town Service Manager, are you aware of those two issues?
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, we had received a request to put bus route and the parking, a bus stop area. In talking with Transport for New South Wales, we can install bus route signs along Ellen Gerard Road without having to get approval from Transport for New South Wales. So we believe that there may be one sign already on Ellen Gerard. We need to just double check that we have, whether they are there, and if they're not, then we can put the signs in place.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding the traffic committee meeting held on the 5th of May? If nothing further, put that. All those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to the meeting of the Local Emergency Management Committee, Tuesday the 10th of May. Someone having to read those minutes for the Local Emergency Management Committee meeting? Sorry. It matters. We just need to move them and second them. It matters. I understand that no one was there, but we can still, we noted in the minutes of that meeting that did occur. Councillor White is happy to move. Councillor Jackson second. Councillor White.
Yeah, I commend the minutes to the council, and with the rider, is there not an elected councillor on it?
And that's been, as I understand, Councillor Whiteley, the normal measure. It used to be under the imprimatur of the General Manager, and now the Division Manager of Engineering Services is our designated local emergency management officer. So that's how that.
I formally move it for the council's attention.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding the Local Emergency Management Committee meeting? Nothing further, we put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to the minutes of the Showground Racecourse Committee meeting held on that same day. Councillor Bruce, can you move that? Second, and Councillor Derrick. Councillor Bruce.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. We held a meeting in the GPS walking around, which was great. A lot of the committee were able to have a look at the upgrades in there with the toilets and the new flooring in there. It looked, yeah, it's looking really good. Yeah, a lot of good improvements, and we had it at 3 o'clock, which probably wasn't a great time, but anyway, we will now be doing it at 5:30 after this, so more people are able to get there. A couple of things, the Adult Riding Club, things are going along pretty slowly with the equestrian centre. We've now found a couple of wet spots in there on the north-eastern side, so the council are looking at what the problem is there. The exterior piping system, there doesn't seem to be any problems with that, so either at the end of this week they're going to, I think, excavate the actual spots to see what's happening. It looks like water's coming from underneath, so yeah, so until that's sorted out, yeah, there won't be anything further happening out there with that. The watering system, I think Aqua West at Narromine are going to be doing that. Once that's done, the cementing will be happening around the complex. So that's about it with the complex at the moment. The cattle yards, with the showground committee, they've had a lot of trouble getting anyone to come and do a design on that, but they finally got Stockpro Condover going to come and have a look at that and hopefully get things going, so a bit of the money's spent there fairly soon on that one. And that's, I think, pretty well it, just everything. Projects are happening slowly, so yeah, that's about it, I think, from me.
Thank you, Councillor Bruce. Any comments, questions, Councillor Brewer?
Comment and questions, please, Mr. Mayor. The Warren camp draft, people having a camp draft on the 2nd, 3rd and 4th of September. That's the plan, and we're pushing forward with those dates. A working bee on the 18th of June, the week after the show. I wanted to ask the Manager for Engineering Services or his delegate whether the toilets in the centre are complete. I believe they are. I just want to confirm that they are complete. And whether the review of the fees and charges is complete. Because we'd just like to know what the costs are going to be, the new costs are going to be, so we can budget accordingly.
I'd split those questions up. Councillor Brewer and former acting Division Manager Engineering. Council Services Manager, can you address the first question regarding toilets?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor, the centre toilets are complete and all functioning, so there'll be no issues there. There's a brand new pumping station that was installed to replace the old septic system, so it's now all transferred across into other parts of the process.
So that's done? Yes, that's complete.
So one more question on that, while I've got you. The PA system for the centre of the grounds?
Mr. Mayor, we had Palm Audio out last week through, it was organised through Matt Kohler. They're sending through some emails with the prices that need to be done, of the work that needs to be done, and certainly hoping to have all that done prior to the show to make sure it's all functioning correctly. I haven't received the emails saying what the issues are at the moment.
Thank you. Can we take it on board to follow it up prior to the show, just to make sure it is every last 12 months ago, the show, the only dead spot was right in the centre, near the bedding, another bedding area. The rest of it was seemed to be operating.
Yeah, it's through you, Mr. Mayor. I did speak with the President, with Matt Cole, and he was going to chase Palm AV.
Matt Cole being President of the Jockey Club is where that comes from.
And fees and charges?
Yes. Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Listed in our operational plan and estimates, the proposed fees and charges are at the back of that document. So I just wanted to look, I haven't got the end. But
No, it's in that,
it's in that document, operational plan document, yeah, so, right on the back of all the proposed fees and charges.
Thank you, councillor. Was there another question regarding that, councillor Whiteley?
Just, it was, at the meeting, it's not really brought out in the minutes, but, the tone of the meeting was good. The communication between, council officers and, all the individual, stakeholders down there, everybody was aware that could be improved and should be improved. And as well as that, there was a indication of all the stakeholders down there that they talk together because of something that one stakeholder might do can affect other stakeholders, and an overriding plan be considerate to other stakeholders about things that they might want to do, and the tone of the meeting and ongoing, hopefully, that it'll be a little bit more conciliatory to other people and the communications will be improved.
Thank you, councillor Whiteley. It's always difficult with, I think there's 9 different user groups down there. Getting that to all work in a coherent way. And just to councillor Bruce, regarding cattle yards, are they in the same location?
At this stage, yes, we're leaving them there. There's a few issues with that, even for use for cattle, where some of the top bars are being taken off the gates and not really safe with having cattle in there. But the talk is, you know, whether we can have it dual purpose, so it's horse users as well. So they've got to be a certain size for that. So, yeah, so we're leaving that with the show committee. At least things are starting to happen there, because we're wondering about all that. But just another ad, they're working on doing their parking for the public and the disabled and drop-off zones for the show. We're getting that organised, so it's a bit better than last year. And getting the certain groups to be the traffic controllers as well, so everyone's on board. So we're happening a bit better this year.
That was certainly a question for me to the show committee as well, because last time I think Council 1 did the work that was requested of the show committee, and there was disquiet about that plan when it wasn't a council decision, it was the decision of the P&A Society about how parking would work. So I think thank you for that. They're very aware that it's their plan, and they need to have it sorted with our council officers so that we can get the appropriate work done in terms of peaking out, etc. Yep, thank you.
Through you, Mr. There's one final thing is with the horse arena, there is obviously a height at the fence around the horse arena that's for horses, and there's also a height for other things and multi-use things. The staff are at the process of getting quotes for the height of the fence, whether it be X level for horses only, or in the long term, whether it be higher, so that it can be used for cattle cutting and etc. That'll come back to us once those quotes are different, and whether they'll fit into the budget is yet to be debated.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding the Showdown Racecourse Committee meeting? Being nothing further, put that all in favour. Against, carried. Moving on to the meeting of the Economic Development Committee held on the 11th of May, the following day. Councillor Derrick, you're happy to move that. Second, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Derrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So to speak to the recommendations, there's 2 here before us. So firstly, regarding Warren Shire signature events. So the idea here is that further report be provided, and we're looking to identify events across the 3 categories suggested here as a starting point. So signature events, community events and facility events. So I guess the idea being that we might be able to identify existing events and potential events, as well as potentially groups to partner with on events. So further information to come on that. The second recommendation here is regarding the funding from the Reconnecting New South Wales Community Events Program. So we've identified six events here to distribute those funds across. So I guess we talked at length about the types of events that would be best suited for that funding, and also trying to go across the board and certainly have some events that are very much whole community, as well as some more specific events on a smaller scale. So I think there's going to be some big ones here. So obviously the Christmas celebrations is getting the bulk of the funding, and that is definitely a whole community type event. And I guess also the youth festival, that would be something here in town, and the Chamber of Music Festival. Yeah, the other ones probably slightly smaller scale, but still very important and having here. So the opening of Carter Oval, the Rugby Union Championships, we've said all rugby league or similar, so there's some details to be confirmed on that, but something sports related, and the Gorilla Boardwalk. So those are the recommendations, which I'm happy to have any questions on, but I would also just like to mention that we were joined at the meeting by Kerry Palmer, who's the new Business Development Manager employed by the Department of Regional New South Wales. She was online with the manager, Angela Shepherd, who some of us may know from her time in COPA. Kerry was very new in her role at the meeting, but was certainly able to give some input, and I guess she's since been out to one. She's attended the Chamber of Commerce meeting, and she's actively been following up to meet community groups and businesses. So we'll be seeing some more of her. Happy to take any questions or elaborate on anything in 20 minutes.
Any comments, questions? Councillor Walker.
Item 5.6, accommodation in the Warren Shire. Have someone speak, or is there a discussion?
That was very much just a discussion, and yeah, I guess identifying that there is a problem with accommodation in it wasn't a recommendation per se, but Kerry Palmer did suggest that she could do an audit for us as a starting point to further the discussion and I guess identify potential opportunities that we could promote and where the shortfalls are. So accommodation in the sense of, we're talking more the visitor accommodation, not housing for residents. Although that obviously comes into it and it's very much related, but this was more in the sense of tourism and visitor accommodation.
So, through Ms. Mary, again, wouldn't it be worth this Housing Plus that's been brought up, that organisation of maybe having them involved or talking with each other?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So again, that is more to do with housing for people to live in Warren. So it's related, but
I think it's a very different issue. Accommodation here to do with the visitor economy. Housing Plus is to do with affordable housing. So that doesn't really fit into this space of what we're talking about here. Any further comments? Councillor Walker? Yes, no, you're welcome.
Mr. Mayor, also, I was just interested, the item 5.9, is that the big screen that's still sitting over there that's being discussed? Is there a moving forward with this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that was the extent of the update, that we have a screen and it needs to be installed.
Do we have the finance to do that?
We have the screen.
Talk to the Mr. Mayor, Finance Administration might be able to bring us up to speed with that.
Through to Mayor, they actually come out to install it didn't have the right brackets. And there is a bit of an issue with the way it's built up there, so yeah, it's just with adding, getting power in it and things like that, so we're looking at. So yeah, I think that the getting it there in the youth. So yeah, they did rock up and they couldn't find a bracket that they wanted. They went around to Warren Joinery, couldn't find one there, so then they went back to Dubbo. And we really haven't heard from him since. So, general manager's following it up, yeah, we'll get it up before then Christmas anyway.
Here's the time frame for you, Councillor Walker.
Even if it's on 2 stools.
No one's going to hear it. Okay, thank you.
Any further comments, questions regarding the Economic Development Committee meeting? No, nothing further, we'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to the meeting of the UNR Waste Depot Committee, for Monday 16th of May. With Councillor Druce, second, Councillor Walker, Councillor Druce.
Okay, radio, we'll get straight into it next, Mayor. Item 5.1, the flood impact on the UNR Waste Depot. We need to have a contingency plan with the way the wet weather is these days and floods. So yeah, it looks like if it's passed, we'll get in and do council do a contingency plan to use Nevertire waste depot that's been closed, but it'll be okay to use that in an emergency. So it's a better option than having to take it a lot further away. So that's that one. Item 5.2, with the new management plan for the waste facility, it's now all in-house. The council will be running and staffing the depot. That we're looking at getting a second-hand excavator, which at the moment they've been keeping an eye on what the excavator they're requiring, and the buckets, grab and the roller attachment, looking at roughly around 120,000. So they're going to use some money from the domestic waste reserve and the rest from the plant funds. It's pretty important that they have this because they'll be able to move the rubbish a lot better, be safer. The staff will get how to use it. So yeah, so that's the proposal on that one. And the other one, collection and disposal of excusable rubbish, that we accept the tender from J.R. Richardson and Sons, option 1. And they were the only ones that actually put in a tender for it. So yeah, that's where we're at with that. So I think some of the questions that will come for that one might need to explain whether there's it's pretty complex on how they've come to that conclusion for option 1. So so if there's any questions, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Brewer, then Councillor McCoskey. Councillor Brewer.
A couple of things. Because we can't remove anything from the site, and we've been over this before, for future plans, I'd like to see green waste put elsewhere so that it could be recycled by either town services, crews, or resold or given away or something like that, because we've done a lot of work to keep all the contamination out of it, and apart from a little bit, the sense of a little bit in there, but it's far, far better than it ever was. Clearly we can't burn it because we get in trouble for that, but is it viable, going forward, do you think? I don't expect to have the answer either, by the way, but is it something that we should be considering? Like that concrete, big old pile of concrete, that will grow again, but because of where it is, it can't come back out of the tip. So if we put it outside the levee bank or something, or had some other way, I thought about it a little bit, all the putrescible wastes could be buried like they are in landfill, and the others might be able to be used, you know, and straight away I think of places like Stony Creek Crossing that washes out and needs extra support and those sorts of things. The broken up concrete could go there. I guess what I'm asking is, the answer can't be put it all inside that levee bank in there and just forget about it, because it'll just fill up before we know it. It's got to, so as a, you know, a strategy going forward, is there something we can do about recycling, I suppose is the word, isn't it? Or sort of...
You, Mr Mayor, I think probably it's an EPA requirement. You cannot be taken out of that facility.
Through you, Mr Mayor, there is legislation around disposing of waste at a non-landfill waste site, which is, so you're not allowed to dispose of waste at a place that's not made for that purpose environmentally.
Yep.
However, keeping in mind, for example, A1 Tree Services, if they come and chip a nice healthy tree that's just been removed in the backyard, then we may request them to stockpile that at the racecourse. So that's sort of already happening in a way, but there is legislation around it that prohibits us doing what we want, essentially, in an unenvironmentally safe manner.
No question. I may have missed the point there slightly then. What I'm saying is, don't put it out there in the first place. The legislation is clear that you can't be removed due to contamination, and we don't know what's in it, whatever else. But is there any room to move on all of that? That's a lot of waste to deal with in that one spot. If we can find another home for the broken concrete, or, you know, maybe that's not a good idea either, because who knows where the concrete came from, but I just don't think we've explored it enough to turn some of that waste back around and use elsewhere, to be honest. Like the new sewage treatment plant, I'm sure there's opportunities there for landscaping and, you know, something that all that, you know, waste could be used on, but it can't come out. I don't know, just for a future agenda item for discussion, I think, in that committee is, are we doing all we can to save some of that reusable, you know, and give it a second life? That's really all I'm saying.
Absolutely, I think that the committee might well take that on board, but I think to the point that the Mental Health Development was saying that there is legislation even outside a designated landfill space. Is that what you're saying? So even outside, Councillor Brewer, there is some legislation that we would have to find out what that actually says.
Yeah, it's easy just to say we can't do it, but I think that if someone had a front load of prunings or a trailer load of prunings and put them elsewhere and they were chipped, for example, then they could go to anywhere. They just don't go into that site.
Let's put it to the Yilgarn Waste Depot Committee and let them come back with a report on what's possible and what's not possible.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor McCloskey is next.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. I just made a comment, Councillor Bruce, that a local current ex-contractor didn't apply for a renewal. Giving the game away.
Don't know.
Just
Through you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you.
Yeah, we don't know, they didn't apply, so that's it. Yeah.
Through you, Mr Mayor, sorry, I do have an update on that one. I have spoken to the existing contractor, and the reason being is that yeah, it wasn't a financially viable project for him, because he would have to purchase a new truck.
Through you, Mr Mayor, again. In light of the fact that council are now looking for an excavator to do work out there, is the ex-contractor's excavator an option given if it's suitable?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I did actually ask that question, and I don't believe he's in a position to sell that machine.
In a position to sell it, or doesn't want to sell it given he's going to be able to use it for it?
Doesn't want to sell it.
Thank you, Councillor McCloskey. Councillor Walker.
Mr Mayor, I'd just like to point out in this report that there was a question asked about, say, the timber pile, which I asked numerous times, and that can be when the weather conditions are right and when it's there's a service available to be chipped and removed, and also the green waste is also chipped, but it's not taken out, as I say, out of that area, it's used for the human waste depot. But hopefully when that's done, that will lessen the piles. I'm just worried about 5 coming with a wooden one, but the chipped wood also stays there when it's been processed.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct, yes, because the contamination of seeds or biodiversity concerns or, you know, things like that, then it cannot leave the site.
You might just question the main finance administration. This tender document, did that fall into line with what we have in our proposed government charges?
Through Mr. Mayor, their initial fixed rate, if you like, collection charge, not using the rise and fall 3 monthly, no, it wouldn't model. We would have had to be looking for probably in excess of 20k. With the rise and fall scenario, it would fall under being that hopefully we won't get another 5% or 6% CPI adjustment every 3 months. So I believe that won't be affected. We'll be able to fund it out of that. Yeah. But it does open up, obviously, for estimate time every year, trying to predict what the CPI is going to rise and fall. But that's the way that currently every other garbage contract that's been done, basically working on a 3-month rise and fall.
Thank you. Councillor McCloskey and then Councillor Bruce.
So the new contractor is essentially only going to pick up the garbage and deliver it to the tip. That's all he's going to do. Then council will manage what it's inside the gate from there. Yes.
Thank you. Councillor
Yes,
Bruce,
I'll
you
just
continue.
keep going.
Sorry.
Yes, if that's finished with 5.3, I'll go to item 5.4 with the verbal report from the Town Services Manager. As you can see, MLB Concrete and Construction were successful with doing the concreting work out there, and he's also now put a quote in to do the earthworks out there, and he is going to, yes, that's been successful within budget, and so hopefully things are going to start better defended. And with all the rain out there, that green area is holding very well. Yeah, so that's hopefully things are going to start happening in the transfer station pretty soon. And I don't know if the Town Services Manager wants to add anything to that.
Now, I've asked MLB when they intend to start, and I'm yet to receive a response. I'll continue to chase.
Thank you. That's the question. That's the answer we wanted. Thank you. Councillor Broad.
One further question regarding the second-hand excavator. Is our budget firm, and how much flexibility do we have in that price? The longer we wait, the more expensive it'll be. And I note that some of that money's coming out of plant replacement budget. And the budget's not stated in here, it's in the report. I understand that was 135,000 or some number like that. Yeah, right. Are we going to be able to do it?
I'll defer that to the Managing Finance Administration and
Through Mr. Mayor, 120 is the indicative, haven't really looked at around, but being that the excavator is going to be working on both, you know, domestic waste and also on general waste, domestic waste, general fund can't subsidise domestic waste. Domestic waste has got to be self-sufficient. That's why we're looking at taking a percentage of the domestic waste reserve and a percentage out of the general fund, because it's going to be working in both, if you want to get technical. So we work on a 65-35 split. 65% out there is probably domestic waste cost and 35 is general waste cost. The domestic waste fund has plenty of money in reserve to be able to afford the excavator. So, yeah, and as they haven't actually been looking for it yet, so with a ballpark figure with 120, so it's not turned all the way. But we would hope that we would go under that for the second-hand estimator.
Thank you. Councillor Kinsey.
Do we have any idea of the hours this machine will achieve in a year? The excavator alone?
Again, through you, Mr. Mayor, not really, because this is going to be new, us taking it over. I mean, the general manager picked the figure out 10 hours a week, 500 hours a year. But until we actually get out there and start doing it and doing our, taking over the full regime from the 1st of July, it'll be based on, as we go along, we'll find out what the need is for it, whether it's 10 hours a week, whether it's 20 hours a week, or whether it's only 5 hours a week.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Councillor Walker.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to add a bit to the pickup, J.R. Richardson and his service. It was also discussed that they probably would only come out, say, possibly 2 days a week instead of what is present at the moment, which probably would mean, if that's the case, we'd have a bit of an education thing for people in the community to understand that it's going to change.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. Keep in mind, some councils only pick up some waste fortnightly. Some of our city colleague councils, so it's an education process, absolutely, but we'll work with what's in the agenda document.
Thank you.
Councillor Walker.
Just one more, Mr. Mayor, please. With regard to the excavator again, is the excavator going to be pigeonholed out there 100% of the time, or would it be an option come the need and the opportunity to use it elsewhere within the Shire?
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. We're going to move before that, and that's why we're looking at a probably, like I said, we have a 2600, so that CV, yeah, so that it can be utilised in other areas.
Other areas, yes. So just won't be pigeonholed.
No, we're not. It'll be stationed out there basically,
Yes.
but being able to be for it somewhere else, we'll look to float.
Yep.
That'll be floated. Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I'm probably looking at a large, probably a more larger one that's really required out there. But
So what might we call it, 26 tonne?
about a 26, so about the same size as the Samsung that we had out at the Warren. It's roughly what we're looking at, wasn't it? Yeah.
20 to 26 tonne.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, that'll be, and the idea was that it could deploy in other areas.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding the waste depot committee meeting? Nothing further, we'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. We go to the Manx committee, the Manx committee meeting, held on the 17th of May. Someone has to move the minutes of that Manx committee meeting. Councillor Kinsey, thank you. Second. Councillor Bruce, Councillor Kinsey.
Mr. Mayor, discussion, please, Mr. Mayor.
Only comment I'd draw Councillor Kinsey in general business is the fact that the additional funding that we've been seeking on Road 7515, Canangor, or the Warren Roads, of course, bringing that to a level where we think we could do the job properly, 3.684. That's been those challenges, particularly by the General Manager and I out at Cobar with the Regional Roads Minister, and we were fairly firm that we wanted to do the job once and do it properly, and it's pleasing to see that extra, around numbers, $2 million has been forthcoming to see that actually occurs, and that's mentioned later in the report, but come up so far in our agenda. Any further comments, questions with regard to that? Sorry, Councillor Walker and then Councillor Brewer. Councillor Walker.
Through Mr. Mayor, I'm just wondering, I noticed in 4.6 human resources, infrastructure projects manager position, and it closed on the 19th. Has there been any applicants?
Through me, Mr. Mayor, I hadn't have not seen them, but we are interviewing, I think, 4 on Monday.
That's great.
But I don't know, yeah, I don't know how many we received.
Three was there, there were 5 applicants, received from Peloton.
There we go. Thank you. So it's interesting that hopefully we've got someone who's really qualified to take that role on. So if someone else had a question, I've got Councillor Bill.
Mine's a comment that it's wonderful to see the RMCC contract is close to be back in our hands, and that no doubt there's a lot of work that's going to ensure that we're ready to go for that. So congratulations to the engineering team to get that. So it's such an important thing for us to have back. It looks like that with the support of Gilgandra Council and our engineering staff, we are now in a position to be able to take on that contract again. So it's very good, and it's a very important contract for us to have.
Thank you, Councillor Bill. The downside is the amount of funding available is 200 and something thousand for being at the moment on terms of just a routine oversight, really, isn't it? Yeah, which is not a whole lot of money, but anyway, it's a start.
You've got to have the contract first.
Yeah, thank you. Any further comments, questions? We go to the next committee minutes. So, Councillor Kinsey, you have the recommendation there. In the end, the minutes of the committee be received and noted. But you're happy to move that. And the second was happy to move that. Any further comments, questions regarding those minutes? If nothing further, put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to minutes of the Sport and Facilities Committee held on the 18th of May. Someone has to move those minutes. If you Councillor Whiteley, thank you. Someone second. Michelle, or Councillor Derek? Oh, no, you have to be there then, don't you, to second it? Not second, doesn't matter. Thank you, Councillor Derek, happy with that. Councillor Whiteley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I move the minutes for comment and questions. To preface the minutes and the meeting, it was discussions at Carter Oval about final designs, and it was recommended to move a broad jump pit closer to the amenities block. There's room and consensus with that. As well, there was discussions over parking, fencing. There was discussions over drainage of the ovals and whether that laser levelling was adequate. Over to our complex at Victoria Oval, the manager's report was well received. There's some action on the guttering and other things about the levee bank there, which are not to quotes at the moment, but the fixing of the water egress into the building will be finalised in the next month or so. I accept any questions that come out of the businesses arise.
Councillor Jackson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question regarding item 4, the action checklist, specifically the swapping of the shallow and deep end shade saddles at the pool. I just want to know, was that raised by, or was that driven by feedback from the pool manager, or has that come from somewhere else? Like, are we seeking the pool manager's input into these kinds of proposed changes?
It came from the pool manager, and it's really anecdotal. There's no temperature measurements being done. There's no verification that that's the case. There is a difference between the various colours of shade sail causing heat differentials. So we've actually asked the manufacturer, and I don't know that they've actually, come back to us, and I'll just defer to Mr. Elton Dalton in a second, but whether they've actually come back to us to say whether there is any real difference or not, between, the differentials at various intervals as a result of different stage, sales colours. Do we have any feedback from Councillor?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I made contact with the manufacturer day before yesterday. They did confirm that there is a difference between the colours and the heat retention or shade throw, and they're going to get me some specification paperwork on that, so I can report back to the Sporting Facilities Committee.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the action checklist item 4, the item that talks about planting trees of Carter Oval. I've been approached by several members of the community who have trees they'd like to donate to this cause. I guess it's less about offsetting costs and more about people having a bit of a stake in that park, knowing they have trees planted there. Can we have a think about how, if we can allow that to happen? First step I suggest would be a list of appropriate trees for that. So we need to engage someone to make sure the trees we're putting there are appropriate for those positions. And then can we encourage, or can we, ask the community if they've got some of these trees to donate them? Now, it mightn't work out because some of the trees that people have got may not be appropriate for it, but I think that it's an opportunity to have some, ratepayer involvement in Carter Oval in that precinct.
Yep. Two parts there. The first is, yes, we have undertaken as a committee that we will get a tree plan done for that precinct. The second part of it is we need to get that done first and then have the irrigation that's appropriate so that the trees actually survive. And then the third step will be actually getting to what can be done in terms of that space. So still very much taken on board. The committee will certainly take that suggestion and on board, and we'll go forward. But yeah, plan.
One at a time. Just not to forget that though, because
take it on board.
It'll come up again at the show. It did last year, and I've been approached by a number of people to wanting to donate trees, and most of these are appropriate, I think. Some maybe not, depending on the advice we get for the landscape and shade trees and those sorts of things. But just to involve the community if we can.
Certainly, take it on board. Councillor Jackson, then Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in relation to what Councillor Brewer was saying, I would like to, if they could take into consideration, if someone donates a tree, what's the liability should that tree end up being diseased or fall on somebody? Could you not also consider a donation program, so rather than an actual tree, that people could buy, such as the things where we bought pavers and they were all put out, somebody could own a tree, but it's a tree that's sourced by council and professionally put in, and it's certified as disease-free, etc.
I think we have to just let's see what the tree plan is and talk to some experts about how that sits. I think Councillor Jackson, let's not get too far in front of ourselves and understanding exactly what you're saying, but let's just get the tree plan first, then we can ask that question of whoever the expert we engage. Councillor Walker, have you got a question?
Yes, I was just wondering once again about the timeline for this, because it's such a great season and rain and moisture and bits and pieces, if there's any facts in the plan.
It's all slowly continuing, yes, but there's
not the middle of summer or something like that.
Taken on board, Councillor Walker, yes. I think it'll be expedited as quickly as possible. We want to get that up and running and shade there. I mean, there is a dark shade in that precinct. So,
it's been a comment by a few community members that it looks very good also.
Like all this in Councillor Walker, in time we'll get there. But, what we don't want to do is running over trees and things and not do a plan properly. The kiosk building has to be, it's a tender now at the moment. currently a tender. So we need to get that building in place, we need to get the irrigation, the plan, tree plan done, we need to get the irrigation system in place, we need to get all those little athletics things sorted, the master plan finished, which is Councillor Whiteley spoke to a minute ago. Lighting for the soccer fields, get those up. There's any number of things that say, yes, we'll work, you know, we've got to be mindful, there's only a couple of years ago, there was nothing there. So, you know, I think it's come a long way. It will happen.
Thank you.
Councillor Whiteley.
Just briefly, I forgot to mention that the decision was made to move the shed complex, with the storage shed complex from where the original plan was to adjacent to the actual amenities, so that the access to that shed for the equipment for Little A's or cricket or something was a little bit more central. So both the major changes to that master plan that we've all seen and studied, it's over there behind the wall next to the toilet door, is the movement of the long jump facility and the movement of the storage shed to next to the amenities block, as per cladded in the same cladding, hopefully, as the amenities block, so it blends into that. If there's any other comment from the town services manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I actually issued an addendum to the tender documents last week for that to happen. So we won't have to negotiate, hopefully, with whoever's successful. It'll be it's actually part of the tender now. I've asked for 3 options to have it incorporated into the existing building as part of the building, clad in the same materials, as a freestanding adjacent to the amenities building, again clad in the same material, or failing being able to do either of those 2 options, positioned in the original position it was located at, with a similar cladding. I don't believe that the third option would be where we end up, but it's just in case we discover some issue, we have the ability to still get it constructed.
Thank you. The only question remaining for me is the internal pool works program. We've been in touch with Vocor. How can I just an update things looking like?
Yeah.
The
The general manager has been in contact with them,
yes.
and we're exploring a fallback option if we need it.
Again, I'm mindful this is the end of May.
I'm meeting option B next week.
Your meeting option
Yes.
B next week?
Yes, I am.
Fantastic. Good. Thank you. Please keep us updated on that one.
Yes.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding the Minister of Sporting Facilities meeting? Nothing further? No, nothing further? In that case, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We have no reports of delegates, being item 7 on our agenda. Moving on to the policy item, and the one policy to review is council social media policy. Someone happy to move the recommendation there, that the information we said noted and the social media policy be placed in public display. Councillor Brewer has moved that. Second, Councillor Derrick. Councillor Brewer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a tricky policy, and I know that it's about time we had one of these things, there's no question. And in fact, my company that I work for is going through the same thing right now. So I'm a little bit across how fraught such a policy can be. We're encouraged in here, it seems, to engage in ourselves as councillors in social media if we wish. But there are some significant caveats on that and some rules that which is completely appropriate. That's not a concern, I don't think. It's more about what we do with mediation and censorship. This policy, it seems, opens us to allow censorship, I think, and which I'm not completely against in some ways. However, social media is not the platform for the community to vent, I don't believe. And often responses that are given to council posts are overwhelmingly negative. No one's telling you do a good job when you do a good job a lot of the time, but sometimes people are defending certain posts, not within council, but council-related social media posts, if you know what I mean. There's some platforms out there that are posting local content about council, and that's outside of our remit, that's for sure. But I guess it's a word of caution to everyone who wants to post on this. Once you post, it's out there for good, and just be careful about how you do it. The other question, and that's more of a comment, I've got to say, the other question I've got is that in that part 3 of the document talks about a ministry framework for councillors on social media platforms, and it mentions in there that we all must undergo training if we intend or we are posting. So we need to have a plan for that. I understand this goes out for public comment once it's approved at this level. Then there's a 28 days, I suspect, of public comment, and then if we're going to do that, we need to have that training. So can we get that sorted out as well in due course, so that if we want to do that, I personally don't want to do it, but so that we all understand our legal obligations for this, because council can be held accountable for things that are posted to our social media pages. And that's what frightens me about the whole thing, and we can't control what people do. So that in itself almost allows some level of censorship and mediation of the comments. Once we start that, it's a slippery slope. Censorship's a tricky thing to deal with, and you can't. It says in here we can be, held accountable for comments that are posted to our social media pages. So just to be aware that 1, we require the training so we can be well informed, and 2, that if we can be held accountable, we need to understand the rules around censorship and those sorts of factors. So sorry, that was long-winded, but this whole thing frightens me. It's necessary, but we just have to be very careful about how we roll this type of media out. Dangerous. Easy to get wrong, difficult to get right.
Absolutely. Councillor Derrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess just stepping back, so as Councillor Brewer said, it's good to have this in place. Well, we have actually had a social media policy since 2018, and I guess to your concerns, I'm reassured by the fact that we have looked at the model social media policy from the Office of Local Government. I think it's fairly consistent. It's not as though we've gone out on our own to create something ourselves. It's informed by the Office of Local Government, who is surely taking into consideration some of those concerns. That's just a quick comment.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor, can I draw your attention to the platforms? And it says we're part 2, 2.1. It says council will maintain a presence on the following social media platforms: Facebook and LinkedIn. Do we need to say will? Should we say may? I think we can choose not to have it. A LinkedIn potentially. The wording there just says to me that you're obliged to do that. I don't know what council's view is on social media. Is certainly not my strong point, I have to say. Councillor Brewer.
I actually agree with that. I think that it assumes the resource is going to be watching this all the time, and which would be appropriate, of course, but that, you know, that's another resource that we have, an administrative function that needs to be done all the time. I know the general manager is quite active on LinkedIn in particular. Without looking at the detail on that, he represents himself there, but also the Warren Shire. So there's already some level of mediation for that. But I'm actually with you. I think the word may should be put in there in place of will.
Substitute will.
We don't have to.
May for will.
But if the general manager makes a choice to do that, we're giving him the platform to be able to do that, sure.
Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, very quickly. I just, further to that, is it necessary to name the platforms? Because if we name the platforms, we're boxing ourselves in to those platforms, because social media is developing in such a rapid pace. There's all sorts of technologies currently available, those in the pipeline. For example, anyone under the age of me would probably point to Instagram as being something that more people are interested in looking at for just a snap of what is happening or update. So perhaps if it is social media platforms, as the general manager determines are the most appropriate, is that something, Mr. Mayor, could be in getting younger generations?
In my view, I think we limit the social media platforms. As soon as it gets broad, we've got 2 million things that Councillor Brewer has pointed to administratively to keep looking at. You got to look at that, you got to look at that, you got to look at that platform. I think if we limit ourselves, we know exactly where we are. We've got it under control to a certain extent. Is my view, Councillor Jackson, but this is a discussion about where we want to go.
Yeah.
I'll take your reply and then Councillor Brewer.
I just, Mr. Mayor, just not so much wanting to just have a broad, suggesting it's broad, but suggesting that if you did say up to 2, and then if it's Facebook's defunct, you don't have to go and revisit the policy in order to move to, you know, the next named platform. That was only the reason I suggested that, just to keep the policy from having to be constantly updated every time there is a new social media platform to replace what we're already doing. That was just why I suggested that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brewer.
On the contrary, I think that to cover that outcome, we should review the document on a 12-month monthly rotation, so that stays relevant. And I just, like, if the general manager goes rogue, he can do whatever he likes. So I think that if we keep it narrow and review it regularly as social media changes, and does change, I agree. We don't want to get stuck into TikToks and ridiculous, you know, so we just don't want that. And again, it comes back to that resource. If we allow all of this, you know, I think we need to keep it bound, but review that on a regular basis so that we remain relevant. One of the hardest things we have as a council is how do we get our message out to the community effectively, so it should be reviewed. And in fact, the whole media policy should be reviewed, I think, not just the social media policy as well. That's another matter. So can we, somewhere in here, we need to look at, you know, this policy should be reviewed yearly or something like that, if we may.
Councillor, are you happy to just amend the social media policy then, or the one that will go out for public display at platform and 2.1 there, and change will for May? Yes, you're happy to do that. Secondly was Councillor Derrick, you happy with that as well? And with that amendment to the actual policy as proposed, is there any further discussion in the recommendation?
You're right. Yeah, part 11.
Yeah, certainly, that'd be the other part. Yes. Yes, okay. Councillor Brewer, on the contents there is somewhere. Part 11 in, that this policy be reviewed each 12 months. Councillor Jackson, does that sit comfortable with you as well?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just depends on the burden that's going to place on the people whose job it is to review the policies. That would be my only question. Is it too burdensome to have a 12-month policy review, just adding to the workload of somebody?
I think it'll be more in relation to what your comments really.
Okay.
If what's the appropriate platform, you know, if everything else, I mean, really, If everything else is working, it's just a matter of saying, no, we need to add this platform, delete that platform. Yeah.
That's good, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So,
Yeah, I was thinking, that we just put in 3.1 council currently as a presence on.
okay. Do you want to just say that back to me? The Planning Finance Administration has a slightly different wording that may be more appropriate.
Oh, through, fair enough. I was just thinking, instead of just saying may, why don't we just have platforms that said council, is currently, the council is currently has a presence on the following platforms. And that doesn't then include the idea of if another platform comes in, to be able to, the general manager to be able to look at adding that in if they wish.
I'm wary of the general manager.
Excuse
That he would then have the ability to do that without consultation with council. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not in favour of that, I'd have to say.
Yeah, I don't think that the general manager should have the ultimate say on that.
No.
I think it should be coming before council and then we agree on it or not.
Yep. I think 2.1, Jody, we may just modify to what council may maintain a presence on the following social media platforms. And those two nominated in the policy are Facebook and LinkedIn. So moving and second, happy with that, we've had the discussion. Any further comments, questions? And we're sorry, adding in that third point about the, on number 11, please. Insert part 11, that the social media policy be reviewed each 12 months, on a 12-monthly basis or whatever the appropriate, annually, yep. Moving second, happy with that, it's on the screen there for us. Yes. Any further comments, questions regarding the social media policy and it's being put out for public exhibition for the next 28 days? Nothing further, we'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 1 of the general manager's report, the outstanding reports checklist, I'm going to move those. Councillor Derrick, second, Councillor Jackson, Councillor Derrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment and a question, both pertaining to page 6 of the checklist. So firstly, just regarding the River Smart Memorandum of Understanding, Memorandum of Agreement, sorry. So I guess just an update on where that's at. The General Manager is undertaking to review the previous MOA, and from there we will be having a meeting with River Smart hopefully in the next couple of weeks to move ahead with the new Memorandum of Agreement. And the question is just regarding the inclusion of acknowledgement to country and whether we're still on track to have a workshop. So it says you expected May, June. So I guess just putting it back on the table and checking in as to whether that workshop's still going to be likely within that timeframe. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll take that on board. I'm not sure where else the chair can manage up, since we're looking at the new, the meeting practice. So I know he's been a bit swamped with other things at the moment and has been putting it off, but I'll take that on board.
Thank you. There are a number of items asterisks on the General Manager's outstanding reports checklist. Councillor Derrick, Councillor Jackson, you're noting that those ones will be removed. Yep. The other ones I just wonder about, in relation to 7515, given that the funding has actually come to fruition. We got a formal advice that funding comes through the additional.
We received a letter, well, we received a copy of the letter received by Fernando Shire, because Fernando Shire are the authors body of the grant, to say yes, we're successful, and they would have to then go back to the, so we're really acceptable.
So we'll leave that on there until it's actually completed. Yep. The other one, I just a question regarding the rubber tired roller. It's actually on deck yet. Oh, well, I think it's been ordered.
It's been ordered, and I have sent a request to the workshop coordinator to find out when that's expected to be delivered, but he hasn't gotten back to me this morning.
Yeah. So I think we can, in terms of this one, there's sort of duplication. There's on page, for me, page on the written, page 18, and then it sort of occurs again on an update, I guess it is, but we can get rid of one of those, 18 and 21, in terms of the rollout. I think we can. I'm mindful of how many items are on this outstanding report checklist, and the duplication sometimes we don't necessarily need. Councillor McCloskey.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just, is there any movement on the terminal building at the airport? Or an update of where that is?
We're struggling to get a contractor to provide quotes for the erection of the frame or erection of the building. We currently have all of the frame sitting out at the airport. We're now looking to continue trying to find an appropriate contractor to do the work. Again, it's on the to-do list. It hasn't been forgotten, but it's just, you know, there has been quite a lot to deal with over the last few weeks.
Through me, I might just have a word here after the meeting, just a bit of street talk.
Thank you, Councillor McCloskey. If we can expedite that process, that's a worthwhile thing, because it has been sitting there for some time.
Potentially, there's circumstances to change within the council. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. Councillor
My question or comment, as it might be, relates to, it's on page 14 of the report, plant 1168 JCB excavator. It's also later on in the report of the Divisional Manager of Engineering Services. That excavator, that small JCB excavator that we have for a down for replacement, now has brand new shoes. Should we keep it longer? Can we bring that back to the table at the next plant committee? Because now we've just sunk $5,000 into it, essentially. The changeover cost was only going to be $15,000, so essentially that's now down to $10,000. That we're going to give away brand new tracks, essentially. Can we review the? I don't need an answer now, but we want. I'd like to review it next plant committee meeting. It's had a full service, new wheels, you know, new tracks. So we've just sunk a fair bit of money into that.
It is down for replacement 22-23, so I think this time, Councillor Lloyd, my reading of this is correct, so yeah, I think it's yes,
the sale of that, or the replacement of that unit was postponed due to needing the additional funding for the rubber type roll. So that was pushed out. May I think has been discussed at the sorry, wasn't discussed at the plant committee because we didn't have time.
No, it was discussed in this forum. Yes, correct. So you see, review that with the machine because it's important.
Yes.
But now it owes us a bit of money. So it's more of a comment than anything. We'll talk about it again next.
Thank you. So, Councillor Whiteley and Councillor Bruce.
Just aside from that comment, I think, yeah, current practices will be, once you decide to replace major plant, it will be up to 18 months. But to decide today and go and get one tomorrow, I think that's no longer relevant.
Thank you, Councillor Bruce.
Just a question on 2810 on page 22, the proposed acquisition notice of Dunbar Street. I just saw down the bottom there's no objection letters received. What is that? Was that the original?
Yep, through you, Mr Mayor, the no objection letters received is from Crown Land.
Right, okay,
Yes.
so where are we at?
Yep, so the application's been filed with the Office of Local Government.
Right.
They're doing up their briefing notes, for approval for the Minister.
Okay, so we've got a way to go yet. Okay, thank you.
Any further comments, questions regarding the outstanding reports and checklist from the General Manager, item 1 of the General Manager's report? If nothing further, we'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 2, the committee and delegates report. And in recognition of Warren being held now, and with awareness of the Healthy Lifestyle Council will be standing while they're at item 2 of the General Manager's report. Someone having to move with those meetings be noted. Councillor Brewer has moved that, second Councillor Kinsey. Councillor Brewer.
Of nothing further, moving the recommendation, thank you.
Councillor Kinsey, you got a question?
Yeah, no, we've got a meeting in Castlereagh and Campbell on the 27th of the 6th, Mr Mayor.
Yeah. And my administration write that down. And sorry, Councillor Walker, did you have a?
I was just wondering, I noticed, Mr Mayor, that Christoph visited, just wondering what was that about?
He's going to Finance Administration. He has sort some details on that because you were anticipating questions because we didn't know the answer.
Through Mr Mayor, Pat Christoph just come in to see if there may be any grants available for the refurb or renewal of Endeavour Hall, just to give a little bit of an update on the place there. So just been speaking with the GM and Rebecca, our infrastructure project officer.
Thank you.
And a question, if I might, on the BEC meeting regarding, I would understand flood damage to roads, etc. Is there any update on that to the Town Services Manager, I guess? Sylvester, you want to hear that stage, will you, the BEC meeting? No, it's not here yet.
Through you, Mr Mayor, it was to try and finalise the, excuse me, the amount that we're claiming for the March 2021 flood damages. There was 2 adjustments that need to be done. One, because one of the roads isn't ours. Another one will be addressed in the November 2021 claim that we are still working on.
Yes.
So I think the amount has been changed from $5.01 million down to about 4.9 or somewhere around those. The last conversation we had with BEC is that they hadn't submitted the proposal or the claim to Transport for New South Wales as yet, but they were still trying to work on the finalisation of that.
Yep. So that's the March one.
That's the March 2021. Once they get through that one, then I'll start.
November, December. Yep, thank you.
Through you, Mr Mayor, a couple of things. Meeting wise, we've got a road meeting, I think next Wednesday, the 1st. Not listed here.
Yeah, no, it's the comment here is future meetings not on the schedule. So it's on your calendar. It's not listed.
Yep, right.
Yeah, that's
And
right. Yep.
again, Mr Reeves, with regards to the flood damage, given the time frame has elapsed, we're 14 months down the track from March last year, and we've still got no resolution to the claim, and the claim hasn't been submitted. So what is a reasonable expectation as to when we might see the money and the work commence in restoration, given also we've got November happened, and potentially the time frame and experience we've had with Beckley there done the investigation? We could be 12 or 14 months down the track again, waiting for that money to come through. So I just find it strange that it's taken so long to get the money and get the restoration underway. It's just, yeah, 14 months is, yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm led to believe that it's not an unusual process for it to take that long, and other places have waited in excess of 2 years for it to be finalised by Transport for New South Wales.
Again, through you, so that on investigations being done by that, or investigations done by other authorities or even in-house?
Pretty much, Mayor, I can't answer that question. I don't know the answer to that question.
Yep.
But other councils have had to wait in excess of 2 years at times for the process to be finalised.
Times may have changed to get through this, but I've never known in my time to take that long.
I'll take it, Councillor Gloucester, thank you.
Big dead.
What did we, again? Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding, item 2 of the General Manager report? If nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 3, the General Manager report, the work in progress report regarding infrastructure projects. Someone has to move the recommendation that the information be received and noted. Councillor Derrick, moves, seconded Councillor McCloskey. Councillor Derrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to ask one question. I'm not pressing for a time frame, but just regarding the pathway sculptures. I can't remember where that is now, but regarding the pathway sculptures, it says that they're constructed but yet to be erected. Just again, not for a time frame, but are we installing those? Is council installing those, or is that a contractor's job? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we will be installing those.
Yes, in the moment, drought funding that occurred, and yes, the sculptures are done, but it's a matter of with the change of infrastructure project manager. I think it's yes, it's not progressed as quickly as we might have liked, and there is a plan in place where as to where they will be and some seating, etc. to go with that. So yeah, in train, but just not unfortunately done. Councillor McCloskey.
3, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to comment on page 28, the last comment, splash park complete. Now, I made reference earlier to in an earlier council meeting with regards to concerns about the lack of shade at the splash park. I was given an indication at the time that there would be shade structures put up as part of the Carter Oval precinct. I just need to confirm that is the case, that there will be some shade provisions at the splash park, given that you've got one tree there at the moment.
I know, that was by the previous infrastructure projects manager. I'll just have to revisit that one for you, Councillor McCloskey, just to confirm that that actually is the case, because there are some things that are just, and in my view, slip between the cracks and haven't actually got to fruition. So take it on board again, and Sporting Facilities Committee might well note that as something that we just need to follow up on, Councillor McCloskey. Absolutely. Anything, Councillor Worsley?
Quick one, I'm not sure who this question's for, Mr. Mayor, but through you, the Pony Club cross-country facilities finalised in March to be inspected by the council engineer and the Pony Club. Anecdotally, I've heard that they didn't pass. Is that a showground committee thing or something completely different? Who owns that? Like in terms of committee process, or is it just a lot of that's on Crown land?
A lot of it's on the travelling stock route. So I'd have to defer to know exactly which, some of it's on Crown, there is Crown land, yes, but there is, and it's getting caught up a little bit in that council is trying to have that part of the TSR incorporated into our Crown land that we manage. And so I'll have to just defer to the Councillor White, who's got some update. Thank you.
it was discussed at the showground race, but there isn't a pony club representative there. I understand there is a contractor that's been, local contractor that's been hired to upgrade that facility, and but because of weather and other things that hasn't.
That's not complete, is that what you're saying?
No, it's not good. But that backing up what Mr. Baird just said, that there is an ongoing thing about the TSR or Crown Land, which might take quite some time to resolve.
Thank you, Councillor Walker.
Page 37, correct me if I'm wrong, I was reading the Mannix minutes and I believe the project with AMU has got the heads up to go forward.
I've asked questions as well, Councillor Walker, and yeah, I'm sure that the General Manager received some advice that that project was to go ahead.
Somewhere in the Mannix.
And I agree with you entirely that it was successful, and it was to do with drought resilience.
Flood resilience.
Yeah, sorry.
Flood resilience.
Flood resilience, sorry. Other side of the coin. Sorry, and yeah, I have to just, because I don't know if you got a formal advice. Whether we can find administration.
I think they got a letter.
Received a formal advice about the success of that project from AMU.
I don't know, I don't know if it actually received one.
Was,
Yeah.
My understanding was there certainly was a phone call to the General Manager advising of the success of that flood resilience program, but beyond that, I have to say I'm not aware of the form. It's been formally come through the system.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Any further comments, questions regarding item 3 of the General Manager's report, the Works Progress Report on Infrastructure Projects? Councillor White.
Mr. Mayor, it was mentioned in the committee meetings that I was involved with re-sporting and the racecourse committee meetings that the interest. I understand the previous policy was the infrastructure manager and one employee in Shire, that the staff were basically responsible for these things, and my question to them was that was there enough staff and was that impacting other things that were going on in Shire? And my comment is to this meeting is that the analogy, we were running on half a team, and I welcome the Divisional Manager Engineer Services to the team, and that will probably increase, but there's a lot of the things that have been delayed in this infrastructure build for a lot of reasons, COVID, weather at our, but now with our town services manager back on his original role, the comments back to the committees that I've sat on was that things should progress. Any comment?
Yes. Yes. As we discussed at the last meeting, we will be. I have had conversations with the infrastructure project team, and we are working through trying to. I'm trying to come to grips with all of the requirements of these projects. We are keeping them moving, particularly at the Showground Racecourse at the moment, to get the projects that we're currently working on finished before the show, particularly those that impact on the show, and then we'll take we'll revalue or have a reassess where we're at and continue on from there, with the hope that we have a full-time infrastructure project manager
on board in around that same time.
Thank you, Councillor Whiteley. Yeah, just to reinforce that I know that our room next door, the conference room, has been overtaken with a whole lot of segments to do with each infrastructure project, and our officers are trying to really get a good handle on exactly where we're up to and just progress each matter. So if you do wander through there, you'll notice there's a room that once was available, perhaps isn't as available as it once was, in terms of set out of documents, etc., to get everything moving. So my belief is, yes, new infrastructure projects manager, if we can appoint someone, and with the new divisional manager of engineering services on board and the town services manager back in their right spots, yes, we'll see some progress. Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding item 3 of the general manager's report, infrastructure projects? Nothing further to put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 4 of the general manager's report regarding the Western Division of Council's mid-term conference held in Cobar. So I'm happy to move that. Councillor Derrick, I'm looking to you. Thank you. Someone a second. Councillor Derrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now I'm looking at you. I was in attendance for one day. Mayor and the manager were there for the whole conference. So perhaps questions and update on the whole couple of days.
Look, I think we've had a reasonable discussion on this in our prior to the April meeting. Was it? Yeah, no, sorry. Probably haven't had this full discussion as we would have liked. We were able to access a significant number of ministers, and the advantage of this particular meeting is that there's only a small number of councils present. The ratio of politicians to councillors is pretty good, and so there is the opportunity always to actually catch up with the relevant ministers, and we were able to speak, quite frankly, with anyone we wanted to speak with, albeit the Water Minister, Kevin Anderson, for a very short time, but we were able to speak fairly plainly about our levy bank issue there. That was the number one issue with him. Dougal Saunders, able to speak with him regarding things pertinent to us, particularly Woolies. Councillor Kinsey, we raised that issue with him and being effective in the spraying of weeds and knocking them out. Also, in preparedness for mice plagues, local plagues, how the shortcomings of the last mice plague, when the state government was very late to the party in terms of possibilities of dealing with that actual plague. Sam Fairway, I think we've seen the evidence of switching him again on as Minister for Regional Roads in regard to betterment, but particularly with regard to 7515 and getting that funding up, and indicating again our enthusiasm for resuming the council roads maintenance council contract. So those things are sort of coming to fruition, so I believe again it was time well spent. We made a connection with Scott Barrett, who's the duty MLC now for this area. He having taken over from Sam Faraway. So good to make that connection, and we welcomed him to come to Warren at his earliest opportunity and have a chat with council. So that was good. Wendy Tuckerman, yeah, we did take the opportunity to speak fairly plainly with her and Ali Dents, the lady who is the executive officer of director of Office of Local Government, and spoke fairly strongly on what our view was on joint organisations of councils. And Wendy Tuckerman will be speaking tomorrow at the Country Mayors meeting, and we will be inviting her. She has been invited. That is the Minister, Wendy Tuckerman, and Ali Dench to the next Alliance of Western Councils meeting, and preceding that, perhaps a Ratner JO as a stands meeting, so that we can speak fairly plainly as the JO, but then speak differently as the Alliance of Western Councils. So it was all I think it's a valuable meeting to go to in terms of it's probably as effective, if not more effective, than the local government New South Wales conference, where we tended to race around and try and get to meetings. And we were able to spend much more time with each minister and get some information to them that gave them some background about what we were speaking about. But certainly happy to take any questions regarding that particular meeting. And I think my view is that we should continue to attend that particular meeting, and particularly Mayor and certainly Deputy Mayor to attend as well. Absolutely. Councillor Walker.
Yeah, I noticed that they're trying to probably invite all the lines of Western councils, so hopefully we'll still have enough time to meet all the visiting dignitaries.
It was a two-sided coin there, Councillor Walker. Yes, I think the invitation was extended to some of the other Alliance of Western councils beyond us. I believe Narromine and Dubbo were invited but didn't attend. I think the thing there was we wanted to show support for the Western Division of Councils, but I think they need to have support in that gives them bigger clout in terms of continuing to get ministers to come to this particular meeting. They time it well. It's an out of session meeting. They always do that purposely so that there isn't availability of ministers. But if suddenly we've got the whole of Western New South Wales almost speaking with one voice, I think that's a valuable thing too. So that was something that we as Warren Shire Council proposed, that they invite all the members of the Alliance of Western Councils, because we're all effectively in the same boat. We want to all talk about the same issues, but we've got a lot bigger clout if we all speak as one. We add in Central Darling and Broken Hill and Balranald and what's the other one down south? Anyway, that is not. It's a big area with similar problems.
I was also just wondering, Brad Can, this is the chair of the Housing Plus.
Yes.
Has he been invited to come and speak here, or did you speak to him?
We've spoken to Brad Can. We've certainly spoken to him about the possibilities in Warren, and Darren, as Manager Finance Administration, provided him with some information. There is some interest in doing something, but we'll just have to continue to follow that up. And we had a visit by some of his people, just to see what actually the lay of the land is here at Warren regarding affordable housing as opposed to social housing. Yeah. Anything further on item 4, the Western Division Council's meeting? Nothing further to put back. All those in favour? Against? Carried. I'm mindful it's 10:14. Councillor, we might adjourn the meeting at this point to allow those attendants wanting to attend Chris Bryan's funeral to do so. Thank you, Councillor. We've just resumed the meeting. Very mindful we just had two presentations from Inland Rail, Australian Rail Track Corporation, with the Narromine to Rail Project, and Grant Christopherson and Evan and Paul from the Sustainable Councils and Communities Program, energy in relation to our energy action plan. Every year in business, we move on to item 5 of the General Manager's report, that being the easement for the overhead power lines going to the new sewage treatment plant on the Oxley Highway. Someone happy to move that recommendation. We advise you to sign that easement. Thank you, Councillor Kinsey. Second, Councillor Drews. Councillor Drews.
I just move the recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions? It's just something that we needed to have done, Councillor Kinsey, so that power line was sorted. Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 5 of the reports of the General Manager, the Roads Maintenance Council contract. Again, someone happy to move the recommendation there. Councillor Derrick, Councillor Whiteley, Councillor Derrick.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Happy to move the recommendation. It's a good outcome and thank you to all involved in work around that so far and continuing.
Thank you, Councillor Derrick. Managed Engineering Services will show you that contract. He's been his light reading for the last short period of time. So he's acutely acquainted with every paragraph and sub-paragraph in there. So it is a very substantial document and as Councillor Derrick said, thanks to the staff and everyone that tried to work together with this end result. General Manager liaising with Gil Gandler, I think we're getting back now to where perhaps well, we are getting back to where we should be. Thank you, Councillor McCloskey.
Through you, Mr. I just note in the paragraph with regard to background, a statement made, however, council's levels of compliance fell below Transport New South Wales expectations. What's the crux of that?
I cannot be exactly sure, but the new regime was brought in post the accident at Brocklehurst, and I don't think we were exactly up to speed with a lot of that compliance that needed to be done. So I cannot be absolutely sure, Councillor McCloskey. The reason we weren't taking part in the road maintenance council contract was more to do with the construction side in many ways, and the previous general manager had some serious reservations when a councillor in the Upper Hunter was, for a better term, fined $5 million for not having the construction up to speed.
Yeah.
And that was really the precipitating factor. It was minimising the downside for us as opposed to seeing any upside, and those two things sort of became quite confluent.
Yeah, no, but just in reading that, I just wondered whether, given that council wasn't a cluster arrangement with Gil and worked under their quality documents, that given if council didn't come up to speed and didn't continue with it, and we were working under their quality documents, how come Gil Gander would continue doing it themselves? If that be the reason.
I'm not sure that that's entirely substantiated.
Yes.
I think it was more the issue about our rate base was $5 million. We couldn't sustain that $5 million, and I think we just got frightened off in many ways, rather than this particular part of it, and that in my view would only relate to the property. So yeah, I take that as advice that bit potentially not being entirely factual. Thank you. So any further comment, Councillor Kinsey?
Surely, but Mr Mayor, that our liability insurance would cover that every bit in the future, or even why we shouldn't let it go.
I'm not sure that was entirely the case, Councillor Kinsey, but
There's various circumstances,
Yeah.
but there's also in there is the scope is that if you put in a wrong quote and you're way under, there was no scope to the way we read the contract to renegotiate. If you run into a wet weather or something like that and put your costs out, well, insurance won't cover that, and also, I mean, the thing was that we didn't really have the expertise on the ground at the time when this contract came in, I believe, more to the point. There were lower numbers everywhere, and we were having problems with Gil, with the way it was all working, so yeah, it all just come into one. So, but now we believe we're right, we'll pick it back up again and run it from Warren Shire Council, not from Gil Gander Shire Council.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
any further comments, Councillor Walker?
Yeah, for you, Mr Mayor, I'm just wondering, the manager was saying that, and it's down here, that 215,000 is the estimate. Will you have a joint inspection before this is signed, that they see that maybe that's not enough to cover what's required? Is that how I'm reading it? A joint inspection will probably confirm the budget problem will be estimate enough.
I think Transport for New South Wales will be acutely aware that it's not the sort of...
It's pretty bad that they had surveillance offers coming through all the time anyway, even under the Gil contract. But but they've only got a limited bucket of money as well that they're given. So when they divvy it out, that's the estimate they've said. So we won't be spending any more than that. I mean, that's basically, that's it. I mean, if you know, that's how the cookie crumbles. We can't make the money. If they can't come up with it, well, we're not going to spend any of the council money on the road.
So the whole thing of betterment after flooding, I mean, will you keep continuing, now that you get this contract, would that make it, would that help? So, you know, like the cost.
We have something, no bearing on it at all. And as a routine maintenance part of 215, which has nothing to do with the flooding or the repair of the flooding stuff, because that's a work order. And we have to get pre-qualified before we can actually submit work orders, and that's what we're trying to get now with EMC, with John Powder, to get us pre-qualified so we can start working on the work orders to do things like the flood damage restorations or the resealing or any major heavy patching or anything. This is just purely fixing up potholes, mowing the sides of fixing up the guideposts, doing your inspections. That's what the 215 is for. So it's just routine maintenance.
So these pre-qualifications have an earmark to.
That's the one where we can go and do heavy patching and the flood works and things like that. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Comment, Councillor Coffey?
Through you, Mr. I'm just going to explain as best I knew, given Darren said exactly what I was going to say, that unless it's changed, 215,000 is a fixed upper limit for routine maintenance, everyday maintenance. Anything outside of that, where works orders and capital works, reseals, heavy patch and minor rehab works could be done with an extra bucket of money plus MSD.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Whiteley?
If I may, when our engineer goes through that contract and it's appropriate and we've all accepted it, I think we should advertise in the local media that we've done so and put our name to once we start work, at the date that we start work. I think it would be appropriate that we put it out there that we're back in the game.
Certainly. Taken on board. Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding item 6, the General Manager's report? Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? It's carried. Moving on to reports of the Division Manager of Finance Administration. First of those is the reconciliation activity. Would someone to move that, please? Councillor Jackson, second. Councillor Jackson.
Just very quickly, yes, I don't have anything to add. I just that we would accept this.
Thank you. Anything further on item 1 of the Division Manager of Finance Administration report? Nothing further. With that, all those in favour? Against, carried. Moving on to item 2, the statement of rates and annual charges. After the recommendation, information received and noted. Councillor Derrick. Councillor Whiteley. Councillor Derrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to move the recommendation.
Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against, carried. Councillor Derrick, you are leaving the meeting having declared a non-pecuniary interest in item 3 of the Division Manager of Finance Administration report relating to the mortgage. Go to item 3, someone happy to move that? Councillor Jackson, second, and Councillor Walker. Councillor Jackson.
Mr. Mayor, just that I move that just be accepted. I personally don't have any questions.
Any further, Councillor Walker, you have a question?
Yes, I was just going to ask the Manager of Finance and Administration. Keep saying that the following works will be undertaken subject to available funding, the toilet and the furniture. When will you know it?
Through the Mayor, we know now that we need extra funds, but it's getting a cost estimate and then put it to council to see whether they wish to proceed with it.
So that's the next step.
And yes, I go through, we're just waiting, trying to get the builder back to finish off the other area, put his accounts in so we know where we are. Because at the moment, yeah, the estimates that I'd had received are way under what it's actually physically cost us at the end. So I want to know where we are at a level playing field stock and say, okay, what are you going to charge? Or what would you charge or quote us to do the rest and make it a firm quote so we know where we are.
Thank you.
Anything further on item 3, the Division Manager of Finance Administration's report? Nothing further, put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Can someone just kindly, Councillor Derrick? Councillor Derrick returns to the meeting. We move on to item 4 of the Divisional Manager of Finance Administration report relating to the Service New South Wales Agency Agreement and the 1-year extension. Someone happy to move that recommendation? Councillor Kinsey. Second, Councillor Rees. Councillor Kinsey.
I'll move the recommendation. I think it's a great thing that we have that within our township, Mr. Mayor. That clause that they can pull the pin on 3 months if I read it properly. That's a bit concerning. That's another one.
Oh, yes, the Manager of Finance Administration might bring us up to speed with that part of it.
Yeah, through this man. Actually, they used the option to extend it for 1 year last year. So I suppose with COVID and everything been going on, they just haven't been able to renew the contract really. But that 30 days, or 3 months, sorry, is an out for both, for us or for them. It's in every contract that you look at, so I'm not concerned about it. It's more that they had to use something in the contract to be able to extend it again without, they've already used the 1 year, 1 year for 21-22, but while things are still going, you can still work under the same contract until such time as within 3 months notice. So it's just, they're using that loophole of the contract to keep it going until they can negotiate the new contract, which is supposed to be around about October, November of this year.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So,
Councillor Whiteley.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Have we got any data on the usage of the facility? Is RMS, especially in Service New South Wales, pushed to digital and online stuff? Is that reducing the usage of our facility?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think they'd like to everything that possibly can be done online, but we'll never get rid of our service agency. We, under the agreements, part of the agreement is a transactional threshold, if you like, and every 6 months I receive from Service New South Wales, they give them a list of how many transactions have been undertaken. There is obviously a rise in fall walls that if our transactions are 10,000 transactions for the year, then if a rise on fall of 10%, they may pay you extra money or they may take money off you. That's never been enacted, which is probably a good thing because during COVID we've never got nowhere near our 10,000 transactions. But they're very flexible. But I do get a report on how we're travelling each quarter anyway for the transactions that have been done through the system. I don't really take much notice of them.
And the data, as the main fire administration is saying, is all security at the minute, given the COVID knife out at the amount of time the facility was closed or.
It's fine with me. I'm back up to Councillor Kinsey. It supplies employment to 1.5 girls, and then also it's a general top quality service.
Thank you. Anything further on item 4 of the Division Manager of Finance Administration's report? Nothing further, we'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 5. Of the Mr. Mayor, Finance Administration's report, general waste, and in regard to the additional special variation. You note in the body of the report there that we received an email from my part suggesting that we needed to have some further information in the resolution from council, and that's basically what this addresses. So someone happy to move the recommendation? Councillor Brewer, secondly Councillor Walker. Councillor Brewer.
There's nothing new in here for us essentially. We've just had clarification or provided further clarification on why we wanted the 1.2. It's already passed on a resolution in March, so as far as I'm concerned, it's straightforward. If this doesn't go ahead today, then we're in a net negative position by a fair bit, and that means services need to be cut somewhere. It's as simple as that. So no one likes extra rates, but also no one likes services to be reduced either. So I think it's a bit of a no-brainer that we allow this to go through as it stands.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions before we put item 5? Councillor Jackson.
Dear Mr. Mayor, I was just wondering about the management of community expectation around any movement in rates, and is that something like a community engagement program, or what will happen to actually bring residents on board along the lines of Councillor Brewer saying, no, we need services, we need to actually have sufficient money? Will you be doing a campaign of community engagement, or will you just send out the new rates notices with an increase on them? How would that
The draft estimates are out now, public comment. That's where it sits.
Okay.
At the minute. And this is nothing to do particularly with, well, it is a little bit, it's tidying up what was already resolved at the March Council meeting. It's a request from IPART to add some additional points to the recommendation that Council passed. It's basically where we're sitting on this one. Any further comments, questions before we put item 5? Nothing further. Put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 6 relating to the sale process of the council-owned vacant land in the Gunnerborough estate to the Beacon Drive. Someone happy to move the recommendation in relation to the pricing? Councillor Kinsey, secondly Councillor Walker. Councillor Kinsey.
I'll move the recommendation, Mr. Mayor. For a reason.
Any further comments, questions? Councillor Walker.
It's really, Mr. Mayor, I was just wondering if you were met to Finance Administration, when it says in the first sentence in the area, so is that just for wine, or do you look further afield?
That's really clear. They were posted on 3 sales in Beacon Drive Warren. Use vacant properties that were sold in the last 12 months. And just averaged it out. That's really there.
So that was council land, non-council land, Councillor Walker. That was on a private open market transaction at a particular levels. And so what we're suggesting is that this is the market value of that land.
Very reasonable given what's happening elsewhere.
Oh, no, Mr. Mayor, my comment to that was that's exactly 25% of a service block in that.
Yes. You drive past Narromine, $69,000 box of land. Any further comments, questions regarding the item 6 of the Division of the Finance Administration report? Nothing further, put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to the reports of the Manager of Engineering Services. And he's happy to field some questions after having a week in the job. Item 1 of his report is the works progress report regarding roads. Someone happy to move recommendation for the information you received and noted. Councillor Whiteley, second. Councillor Kinsey, Councillor Whiteley.
Yeah, I commend the report, and, comments.
Just an observation, how much is this wet weather holding us up in terms of getting on to the work we want to do, besides significant holes? So, Sylvester, how are you travelling on this one?
Not very familiar.
Very not familiar, okay. I'll address it to you first, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it is holding us back quite a significant amount. There's still vast areas that are just far too wet to grade to do any repair work to. As soon as we can get to those, we will.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Kinsey, I interrupted you. Do you have a question?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, on page 3, I'm certainly looking forward to seeing our grader crews getting out and into it, especially in the southern end of the Shire. Grader crew, wow, I wish them all the best.
It's a bit damp, I understand, Councillor Kinsey. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Councillor McCloskey.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a couple of things. Given it is too wet, are we taking advantage of what moisture is out there in circumstances where we can go and grade?
We would like to feel that, I think.
Yes, we are.
And another one with regards to Duffy Road, the success or otherwise of the work down there, where did that end up?
Yes, you can certainly take that. So that was a question that was asked last council meeting, was it not?
Yeah, I raised it before last with regards to potential access problems down there, given the state of the road at a particular location, and the detour that then was around it was going to be closed at basically the beginning of cotton harvest. So I just wondered what's been done and how successful it is.
Thank you. We'll take that as one of you might just be able to get back to Councillor McCloskey and just bring us up to speed on that particular. I know it's probably pretty well out there, Councillor McCloskey, at the minute, but yeah. Thank you. Councillor Whiteley.
Couple of comments, and one about that, and some of the because of the wet weather, some of the grading that we've done has been wrecked within a matter of weeks or a week. Whether I know we're going to keep the boys at work, but whether we should have done it. And the other comment is, when there's a major amount of wet weather and we've got 3 grader crews that can't work or can't do productively what they're doing, is there a project to productively use that personnel?
I just address that to
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we do try to divert the crews to other active and worthwhile outcomes. A lot of the staff take leave when they know that they're not going to be grading for a period of time. So yeah, we do try to keep everybody active as best as we can.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think that possibly some, now we've got more people more in the engineering team, that we should have, can I suggest work-ready projects for those, because it just, from the anecdotal, what I see, sometimes there's not the most productive work being done.
taking on board Councillor Whiteley and mindful we've gone from one extreme to another where we didn't have work for grader crews, and they were moved into the rehabilitation of Nevertire and Colli. That was very worthwhile at the time. So I understand that we've just gone from one extreme to the other, and circumstances which are really.
Mr. Mayor, my comment was to plan ahead for such scenarios, to have projects that possibly are under budget that can be utilised, those staff.
Taken on board. I think we're all acutely aware of that and we just need to understand if there are constraints, no matter what you do, there's only so many projects that can be done in adverse weather conditions. Thank you. Anything further on item 1 of the first page report, using the manager of engineering services? And further, we'll put that all those in favour, against carried. Moving on to item 2, town services. The report there from the division manager of engineering services. Someone happy to move those. Councillor Kinsey. Councillor Derrick. Councillor Kinsey.
I just move the recommendation to receive the notice. I must congratulate Warren Shire on the condition of the Warren Lawn Cemetery. Not that I intend to stay there or be there too often, but it does look pretty damn good.
Thank you. Anything further, Councillor Walker?
Previously, I was just wondering, Camp Services Manager, it says that the Lawn Cemetery, stage 3, we had a contractor that appears to have gone. So do you need to get another contractor to finish the work?
Free, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, we have engaged a new contractor to install the ring main and to do some additional drainage works to try to improve some of those areas that have been a little bit problematic in the stage 1 and 2 of the lawn cemetery. So those works, the ring main works start Monday and Tuesday, subject to the weather. Hopefully we'll be finished within a week.
It's drainage a big issue on that.
Yeah, there are a number of sites that do suffer from heavy rain. The site that you would have been at today is probably the most impacted. And we were quite glad that the rain stopped when it did and allowed it to dry out. But hopefully with the works that we're proposing to do, that will reduce the impact on that site.
Councillor White.
One follow that question. The plans for that, do they include trying to improve the drainage at the Chinese cemetery end, Presbyterian end, close to the gym?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, the works that are proposed are for the lawn, the current stage 1 and 2 area of the lawn cemetery and the proposed stage 3 extension area.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, would it be when the drainage doesn't work at the other end, that overflows across the road into the lawned area that you're trying to drain? Wouldn't it be appropriate to think about the drainage off the bypass road and coming down the road from the gym on the left-hand side as you travel?
Mr. Mayor, we haven't had that issue with it overflowing from the old section of the cemetery into the new. In the time that I've been here, I haven't seen that happen, but I'll take it on notice.
A question of town services manager again. We're having some difficulties with the flow wall. Has that been resolved or how's
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we're having some trouble with the telemetry and controlling the pumps and the reservoir.
Yeah.
Until recently, we had the company that was after our telemetry finally come out Tuesday, and so I'm now happy to say that Collie is working on its new or with the new pumps or the new refurbished pumps.
Right, done. Beautiful. Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding item 2 of the Division Manager Engineering Services report? Nothing further. Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Yeah, just real mains flushing. I've noticed, particularly at my place, in the last couple of weeks, I turned the hose on outside for water when it doesn't rain. The water coming out of the hose is rank. It has a rank smell for probably 10, 15 seconds.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll take that on notice and we'll have some, have a
We
look
might
at
put a couple of weeks there.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Just one more, please.
Yes, Councillor Bosky.
I noticed here we've got an installation of 25 stormwater quality improvement devices. Are they like gross pollutant traps, are they?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, they are. There was we put an application, a grant application in through the Murray-Darling Basin Authority, to install 25 units. The reason that they're called stormwater improvement quality devices nowadays is, as a hangover from my time with Sydney Water, they didn't like the term gross pollutant traps and changed it to stormwater quality.
What they actually are.
Exactly right, but they, both names are correct.
Yeah. And same as that, the one in front of the tape, is it still cleaned regularly?
It has been cleaned recently, yes.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments on item 2? Councillor Bosky, you up to speed. Thank you. If there's nothing further, put item 2, the Division Manager of Engineering Services report. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving under item 3, the Division Manager of Engineering Services report, the Fleet Workshop report. Recommendation that information be received and noted. Councillor Kinsey moved. Second, Councillor Walker. Councillor Kinsey.
Move the recommendations, good to see the workshop busy.
Anything further on? Councillor Walker. So I didn't know whether you.
No, that's, oh, it's actually McGee.
Yes, I didn't know.
I was just going to point out, maybe, if I'm right, that you'd be very happy to get this new piece of machinery because the one hired seems to be going in quite a few times for issues, the roll and gone in about 3 times.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything further on item 3, the works progress report regarding workshop of the fleet? Councillor Whiteley.
Mr. Mayor, I noticed here, and I was glad to see because I was going to bring it up, the waste oils drop-off point at the front of the workshop. And I see 8 hours against that. Efficiencies of that and where that is and the mess that it leaves there. Can we investigate whether that's in the right spot, or even if we take the drop off back to work hours? It just seems a bit messy to me.
I think we'll take that on notice, Councillor Whiteley, and yeah, work on that point taken again. Any further on item 3, Councillor McCloskey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just on what Councillor Whiteley just mentioned, I made mention to the General Manager a couple of weeks ago with regards to the eyesore that was coming out the front of the depot. And the time frame that I believe from when it was done last to when it was done only just last week, and the amount of material that was out the front, that given to rather than let it become an eyesore and a big job in terms of time, to be done more frequently, whether that be on a weekly basis or weekly basis, so you don't have that situation.
Yep, no, we can understand, and let's move that on to management and
Yes.
see that that is undertaken, make it much tidier than it has been.
And just another question, if I would, mate. In the report of the workshop, we've got a number of items where we have repair times, but then we don't have any downtime against it. We have, repair times an hour, no downtime, 5 hours, no downtime. Yet in others, I don't know whether it's because the plant wasn't being used or whether they didn't deem it to be downtime. But there's half a dozen, or actually more than half a dozen, probably 10 spots where we have repair time, but no corresponding downtime.
ones I've got, I've got a zero, is that what you?
Yeah, like if you go down to the fourth item, third item,
Yep, yep.
two-wheel drive Hilux Ute,
Yes.
no downtime, but 1 hour repair time.
Yes, okay, yeah, I'm not, I see what you're saying, exactly, were they not in use at that time, and
Yeah.
not, yeah, understand that.
Oh, Mr Mayor, I simply suggested they weren't required, look at the chainsaw. It wasn't needed, it was just being fixed.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's the case.
It was being repaired in the time that was appropriate. Yeah. Thank you. Anything further on item 3 for the report of the division of engineering services? Nothing further, put that all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to the report of the manager health and development service. Item 1 there, development application approvals. Someone had to move those. Councillor Kenzie. Councillor Bruce. Councillor Kenzie.
Good to see things bounding ahead another time.
Is that not always the case?
You're on fire.
Any further on the manager health and development's report regarding development applications? Nothing further, we'll put that all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 2, development manager report regarding the works progress. Someone happy to move that recommendation, information to be received and noted. Thank you, Councillor Walker. Second, Councillor Garrett. Councillor Walker.
Moving those recommendations, thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding item 2 for manager health and development? Sorry, Councillor Walker, I didn't see you.
No, I was just scratching him.
Never too sure, Councillor Walker. Can you give me a... Yes, this is the old thing, waving, not drowning, or whatever the terminology is. Thank you, Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Please, Mayor, I'd just like to ask page 5, there's those 3 items for the sporting and cultural centre with the toilet and the retaining wall and the speakers. They all have been over the, the budget, and you're going back to see what can come around again.
We have a report to the sporting facilities meeting regarding these 3 items. So these have been funded out of the local roads community infrastructure round 3. Okay, yep. And so we, yes, gone out to the marketplace. I think that the disabled toilet was close. So let me, I'll look at this. One was well over out of the budget we had in place. So what you might recall better.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, there was a few items, and from memory, forgive me, scoreboard is now active, was being tested last week, so I presume the manager was quite thorough in his report to the sporting committee meeting. The guttering is to be done. The repairs to some of the gym equipment was done. There is a problem with the quotage for the repairs to the retaining wall, forgive me, and he was redoing that slightly so that the worst of the retaining wall could be repaired in the budget timeframe. If there was anything else?
Yeah, so the toilet seemed to be a possibility within the budget. The retaining wall seemed to be over the budget, but was being revised. The mixing sound system, the manager of the Wine Sporting Culture Centre is of the view that the internal machinery, as in what sits in his office, may well have reached its use-by date. And so he's addressing that. We've had investigations on the outside microphone, and we're going to solicit just further expert advice as to whether that is working as well as it could, and whether just a third speaker would give better sound. Just their spot is just in front of the building in terms of external speaker. So there's 2 new speakers on each end of the building, which cost in the order of $250 or so each, so not a big expense. I think they've made a difference, but whether we need a third one that points more down in front of the building, the other 2 project straight out. So the manager of the Sporting Club said is undertaking further investigation in this time Audio Plus to see where that ends up and getting the result we really want. But the internal part of it may well need refurbishment, and that's part of this $9,000 budgeted amount.
Does this money have to be spent on in June or just grand?
Third round, I've forgotten exactly when, but that's this money that came out of the local community infrastructure round 3. It's a fair long, that one.
Yeah, round 3 didn't open up till the 1st of January.
We allocated it in many ways, or almost allocated it in many ways. We allocated a substantial amount to roads. There was 1.3 million altogether, 1 million to roads and about 300 round numbers to community infrastructure, and that came out of this particular part, came out of that 300, and so yeah, we've got plenty of time. Every role is a lot of time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick spell check issue on page 5, on the type of development mentioned. We have pre-forming arts and performing arts. Could that please just be fixed to performing arts for future reports? Thank you.
Certainly. Is there something called for performing arts? No. It's uniform. Thank you. Question, Councillor White.
Question, the easement for the pound, is that that's coming underground from, the existing power at the camping facility, is that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct, yes. I have received different advice from different bodies and led to believe that the easement may actually not be required. So
I think you might be correct.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding item 2 of the Manager Health and Development Report? Nothing further, put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 3, reports to the Manager of Health and Development, and that pertains to our Energy Action Plan, of which we had a presentation earlier today. In light of that presentation, is someone having a view to the recommendation? Councillor Whiteley, seconding Councillor Brewer. Councillor Whiteley.
Yeah, I commend that report. I was interested and I was pleased with the comments from our consultants today. I think it's something that we need to look at as a broad picture in going forward, and I commend the report to council. When the new one comes out, that we're not condemned with it.
Noted, Councillor Whiteley, and the Manager of Finance Administration has that well in train. That document, yes, does relate to 2018, but yes, I'm sure it's even actually been picked up earlier as well. But take that on board, certainly.
Previous mayor, the main page where it's signed, it does say Warren Shire.
That's where it really counts, yes. Thank you.
I'm not qualified to pick up spelling mistakes, but
Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding the Energy Action Plan, and Councillor Brewer?
There's a lot of information here. On page 7, right at the very start, page after recommendation, it's recommended that we reduce the capacity for the Works Depot and the Council Administration Building. Does that then allow for the budget to cover option 2? Is that what we're talking about there? There's a lot of numbers being thrown around in here. As long as that reduction, there's no blowout in the budget, because originally we got ourselves locked into the 2 big buildings thinking that was the right thing. And of course we should look at the advice that's given to us, and the savings are fairly substantial. I think it was $118,000 all up somewhere I read, and I was making notes earlier. So a 7-year return on that investment based on $25,000 savings on those 2. Is that right? So $110,000 in option 1. Is that what we had allocated?
Through this there, we had 125,000.
Right.
Allocated for the depot and buildings. And that figure come about, what happened was, one of the previous councillors had a company come around with solar. They wanted to come in, and they did a bit of a quote. They just went out and quoted some of their buildings and what it would cost to put solar on based on and they didn't go into as much detail as what charge works and very good. And so we thought, well, when it comes through the Office of Warrant Heritage and charge work, we're going to do this for us, and then the action plan, we thought we'd wait on it. Now, the same company's been ringing me once every month, wanting to know what's going on, they want to quote for it, but they basically said to me, if you work on roughly around about $1,000 a kilowatt, what the charges will be. So when we looked at what figures come out of the Energy Action Plan, we reckon we could probably put in all the phase 2 options. But it will obviously come back to dollars when we go out to tender, and if we may have to drop one off, we may have to drop one off. But if we have out of the local roads and in the infrastructure, without free money, it is $125,000 allocated for that.
Right. And does this go through the proper tender process like everything else? Because this one's
if this goes through now, we will put out on vendor panel.
Yep.
To all solar suppliers within an area of that can apply. So basically, it'll go out and not as a tender, as a request for quotation, because we don't have to go to tender unless it's over 250,000. So it'll go out for a request for quotation on vendor panel to all the people that supply AV solar systems.
And a further question would be, who's involved with the the tender process and the awarding of that tender? Because it'll come back to council at some point for approval or not?
No. Doesn't need to. I mean, you've got delegated authority because it's under the tender threshold of 125 to go and put it in, unless council resolves that they want to go through and have a look at the quotation. It's not a tender, it's quotation.
Right.
You've got to get that, it's not going, a tender has to be advertised in the Sydney Morning Herald and everything like that. This won't, but this will be just specifically sent out through vendor panel to everyone on vendor panel and sign up vendor panel for that can supply and install these systems based on the Energy Action Plan. Probably go out in 2 separate ones. They believe that you'll get better bang for your buck if you go on ground ones out of the water tower, out of the Ellenswell Road, and then just put all your rooftop ones together. And then we'll see what happens with the request for quotation that goes out when they come back in again. And then an analysis will be done as to how we go from there. But certainly, if council resolves that they want to look at those before anything's accepted, that's fine. You put that in the resolution.
I would just say that cheapest is nowhere near best in solar panels on solar infrastructure. It's a false economy to go cheapest. So I don't know what filter you'll run across it, but that's a significant score in terms of points as price. I'd hate to see us take the cheapest option. And we don't. We've not done that in the past, either with any machinery. But yeah, it's a false economy to go cheaper, so that's, and I don't think it needs to come past council personally, if it's done right.
I think, I don't know whether charge works, for instance, have some expertise in what is a reliable, long-term.
Can they advise?
I would tend to think what the regional health, I mean, health manager do it. I believe that we could run that past them, but, you know, the company, they would name the company if they're reputable or not reputable, and try to product that are reputable. I mean, we certainly wouldn't, so we'll take advice from anybody as possibly can, and not fall into that trap where you get a good cheap system that only lasts 2 years, and then your panels are no good, and don't generate the power. Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I just did a quick check on vendor panel local government procurement, and there are 11 companies listed under solar power systems. So they've been through a vetting process through local government procurement. There are others on the open marketplace under vendor panel, but
The local government procurement ones won't look at ours. No, they're looking at $1 million above. So.
10% of that plus.
But under vendor panel, I had a look at the vendor panel the other day, and there's probably 200 or so within 500 kilometre radius of Warren. And obviously, yeah, I mean, you can put it out to all those and just blank it out, but, yeah. But I think that obviously when we go out for a request for quotation, we don't necessarily have to accept any of them either. It's not, it doesn't commit us to anything, but it gives us freedom of choice and more perspective of what's going on.
Councillor, do you want to add something to the recommendation in terms of council seek expert advice in the assessment of responses?
If that's appropriate, it sounds fair, yeah. I mean, it's easy to get this wrong. None of us are experts on this. It's a big project, and it's the cornerstone for a much bigger, you know, phase 2, 3, whatever it is. You know, the one where we talk about that sort of baseball stuff. So if we don't get this right at the start, we're starting off poorly. Yes, please.
Yeah, full point there, please, Jody. That council obtain advice on reputable suppliers post the close of vendor panel submissions. Maybe someone to tidy that up.
Would you put in who you'd wanting to obtain the advice from? We just put it like that.
For the consultants?
Oh.
It's already there.
Sorry, get rid of that. Council.
On vendor.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
may I add 2 words, reputable suppliers of quality equipment?
Yep, okay, true.
Those things where you want like with this, because it's a bit, you've got various stages of this project.
They'll be quoting on whatever number of kilowatt capacity it is. So that will be like for like. They'll be all the same size. Is that what you're saying? I'm going to do what you're saying.
Like with when you're moving forward to the next stage of putting it on other buildings and. No, not in kilowatt, not in the. Maybe the supplier, the products.
Not necessarily. Councillor King.
Probably installation should be added to that too.
Yep. Suppliers and just suppliers and installers, please. That's all.
Yeah, that's better.
Just type that again, Jane, that council obtain advice, obtain first.
If we want cancel it,
So I'll leave the that council, just obtains first. Maybe that one.
Yeah, it's,
Just put as suppliers, we put and installers after suppliers. I'll give it to the next bit. Yep. Happy with that. With, Councillor Whiteley, second was, Councillor Gillis. Councillor Whiteley, Councillor Brewer, you happy with that?
I'm happy with that, thank you.
Any further comments, questions?
It's an exciting project, and I think those people who spoke to today, their advice and going forward. And our, what is it, our contract ends at the end of the year, so.
I think we've all been very people watching budgets in terms of, I know it's just all through me watching budgets on power and particularly the lights over there, and to see them, but it's been relatively stable, so, but we've been anticipating it in the time. Councillor Kinsey was part of that committee a little while ago, always anticipating that potentially could shoot through the roof, power costs, so this is something that just mitigate that potential circumstance. That's what I'm-
They've just had LED lights put in the first book, right? On the
Over in Carter, a lot of LEDs, but the plan would eventually, when these fail, at Victoria, I'm saying these fail, Victoria fail, that you would work towards, LEDs. Anything further on item 3, which Manager Health regarding the energy action plan? Nothing further, with that, all those in favour? Against? Carried. We got item 8, we have no notice of motion or questions with notice. There are no confidential matters. And that brings us to the conclusion of the meeting. Thank you all for your attendance.